In the year 2147, humanity stood on the edge of a new era. For centuries, people had looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone in the universe. They built telescopes, sent probes into space, and dreamed of finding life beyond Earth. But now, after decades of effort, scientists had finally cracked the code to communicating across the vast distances of space. It was a moment that would change everything. At the heart of this achievement was a team working out of a small but advanced observatory in New Mexico. The leader of the group was Dr. Rachel Myers, a brilliant scientist with a quiet determination that inspired everyone around her. She had spent most of her life studying the mysteries of the cosmos, and this project was her life's work. Helping her was Alex Carter, an engineer with a knack for solving problems no one else could figure out. Together, they had designed a system capable of sending a message into deep space, a signal strong enough to reach distant stars and, hopefully, intelligent beings who might be listening. The message itself was simple, but carefully crafted. It contained a series of mathematical patterns, universal constants like pi and the Fibonacci sequence, that any advanced civilization would recognize as artificial. Alongside these numbers were images, pictures of Earth's cities, forests, oceans, and even its people. There were also symbols representing science, art, and culture, showcasing humanity's greatest achievements. The goal wasn't just to say hello, but to show what Earth had to offer, to prove that humans were intelligent, creative, and worth talking to. On the day the signal was sent, the team gathered in the control room of the observatory. The air buzzed with excitement and nervous energy. Rachel stood at the center of the room, her eyes fixed on the monitors displaying the transmission process. Alex sat nearby, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he double-checked the final settings. Everyone held their breath as the countdown began. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alex said softly, pressing the final button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a faint hum filled the room as the signal shot out into the void. It traveled faster than light, riding on waves of energy that stretched across the galaxy. The team erupted into cheers, clapping and hugging each other. They had done it. They had reached out to the stars. But as the days turned into weeks, there was no response. No alien ship appeared in the sky. No mysterious messages crackled through the radio waves. Life went on as usual, and some people started to lose hope. Had the signal been too weak? Had it missed its target entirely? Or worse, was there really no one out there to hear it? Then one night, something strange happened. Across the world, every screen flickered simultaneously. Phones, televisions, computers, even billboards in busy city streets all displayed the same thing. At first, it was just a jumble of symbols, lines, and shapes that made no sense. People stared in confusion, wondering if it was some kind of glitch or prank. But then the symbols shifted, forming words written in perfect English. Galactic Archive Categorization complete, the message read. Earth status updated. Don't even think about it. The word sent shockwaves through society. What did it mean? Who or what was the Galactic Archive? And why had Earth been labeled so ominously? Governments scrambled to respond, calling emergency meetings and launching investigations. Scientists tried to trace the source of the message, but it seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. Conspiracy theories spread like wildfire. Some people thought it was a hoax, while others believed aliens were preparing to invade. Fear gripped the planet. Rachel and Alex watched the chaos unfold from their lab, feeling a mix of awe and dread. They had wanted contact with extraterrestrial life, but not like this. The classification felt like a slap in the face, a judgment passed on humanity without explanation. Determined to understand what had happened, they dove into their research, analyzing every detail of the transmission they had sent and the message they had received. As they worked, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. The phrase "don't even think about it" sounded almost personal, as if whoever or whatever had sent it knew more about Earth than anyone realized. Was it a warning, a threat, or simply a statement of fact? She didn't know, but she was determined to find out. Meanwhile, the rest of the world struggled to make sense of the situation. News outlets ran nonstop coverage, interviewing experts and speculating about what the message meant. Social media exploded with memes, jokes, and heated debates. Some people saw the classification as proof that humanity was doomed, while others argued that it was meaningless, just the ramblings of some distant bureaucracy that didn't understand Earth's potential. One person who took the message seriously was Emily Dawson, a journalist known for her investigative reporting. Unlike many of her peers, Emily wasn't content to speculate or sensationalize. She wanted answers, and she was willing to dig deep to get them. Her investigation led her to files buried in government archives, documents detailing decades of secret projects aimed at contacting alien civilizations. Among those files, she discovered references to the Galactic Archive, a shadowy organization mentioned only in passing by researchers who claimed to have intercepted fragments of its communications. Emily's search eventually brought her to Rachel and Alex. She tracked them down at their observatory, hoping they could shed light on the mysterious message. When she arrived, she found them poring over data, their faces pale with exhaustion, but lit with determination. "We've been trying to decode it," Rachel explained, gesturing to the screens around her. "But there's nothing concrete yet, just impressions." "What kind of impressions?" Emily asked, pulling out her notebook. Rachel hesitated before answering. "It feels like judgment, like they've been watching us for a long time and decided we're not worth the risk." Alex nodded grimly. "And whatever they're worried about, it's bad enough to put us off limits." Emily frowned, jotting down notes. She had seen enough during her career to know that humanity wasn't perfect. Wars, pollution, inequality, all of it painted a picture of a flawed and often destructive species. But she also knew that humans were capable of incredible things. They had built civilizations, cured diseases, explored the depths of the ocean and the reaches of space. Surely that counted for something. "I think we need to figure out why they came to that conclusion," Emily said firmly. "If we can understand their reasoning, maybe we can change their minds." Rachel and Alex exchanged a glance. It was a daunting task, but they couldn't argue with her logic. If Earth truly had been blacklisted by some galactic authority, then finding a way to appeal the decision might be humanity's only hope. Over the next few days, the trio worked tirelessly, piecing together clues and brainstorming ideas. They reached out to other scientists, historians, and philosophers, pooling their knowledge in an effort to uncover the truth. Slowly but surely, a clearer picture began to emerge, one that hinted at secrets far greater than anyone had imagined, and as they delved deeper into the mystery, they couldn't help but wonder, what would happen if they succeeded? Would the Galactic Archive reconsider its stance, or was Earth truly beyond redemption? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain: the journey ahead would test humanity in ways no one could have predicted. A month passed after the mysterious message from the Galactic Archive, and Earth remained tense. Governments tried to calm their citizens, but no one could ignore the ominous classification. Don't even think about it. People couldn't stop wondering what it meant or who had sent it. Despite the lack of answers, life went on, though now with a shadow hanging over everyone's heads. Then one morning something happened that changed everything. A massive alien ship appeared in Earth's orbit. It was unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. The vessel shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting sunlight back at the planet below. Its size dwarfed even the largest human-made structures, and its presence silenced every debate, theory, and argument about the message. For the first time, humanity knew for certain they were not alone. Panic gripped nations as military forces scrambled to prepare for the worst. Fighter jets took to the skies, satellites monitored the ship's movements, and emergency broadcasts warned civilians to stay indoors. But despite the fear, the alien ship made no hostile moves. Instead, it hovered silently above the planet, waiting. Hours later, The world gasped as holographic figures materialized in major cities around the globe. In New York, London, Tokyo, and countless other places, people stopped in their tracks to stare at the glowing image of an alien being. It stood tall, with smooth, silver skin and eyes that seemed to glow faintly. There was no mouth, yet when it spoke, its voice echoed clearly inside everyone's minds. "I am Kale," the figure said, its tone calm but firm. "I represent the Galactic Archive, an organization dedicated to cataloging intelligent civilizations across the cosmos. Your planet has been under observation for centuries, and today you have been officially classified." The being paused, letting the weight of its words sink in. Then it continued. "Earth status is now updated. Don't even think about it. This designation means your civilization poses risks deemed too significant for interaction. You are advised against attempting further contact with extraterrestrial entities." With that, the hologram disappeared, leaving behind stunned crowds and unanswered questions. Why had Earth been labeled so negatively? What did the Galactic Archive know that humans didn't? And most importantly, what would happen next? Governments immediately convened emergency meetings to discuss how to respond. Some leaders argued for diplomacy, proposing to send a message asking for clarification. Others believed the aliens might be bluffing, suggesting humanity should ignore the warning altogether. Meanwhile, conspiracy theories ran rampant online, with some claiming the entire event was staged by secret organizations, while others insisted the aliens were preparing to invade. Amidst the chaos, journalist Emily Dawson refused to sit idly by. Her curiosity burned brighter than ever, and she felt driven to uncover the truth behind the classification. She began digging deeper, searching for clues that might explain why Earth had earned such a damning label. Her investigation led her to Dr. Benjamin Hayes, a reclusive astrophysicist who had worked closely with Rachel Myers and Alex Carter during the initial Signal project. Benjamin lived in a remote cabin surrounded by dense woods, far away from the noise of the world. When Emily arrived, he greeted her cautiously, his gray hair messy and his clothes wrinkled. He didn't seem surprised by her visit. If anything, he looked almost relieved that someone was finally asking the right questions. "You're looking into the classification?" he asked as he poured 2 cups of coffee. His voice was soft but carried a hint of urgency. "Yes," Emily replied, taking a seat at his cluttered kitchen table. "I want to understand why they classified us this way." "Do you know anything?" Benjamin hesitated, glancing toward a locked drawer in the corner of the room. After a moment, he sighed and opened it, pulling out a stack of files. "I intercepted additional data from the alien transmission," he admitted. "Data that wasn't shared with the public, or even the government." Emily leaned forward, her pulse quickening. "What does it say?" He spread the documents across the table, pointing to sections filled with strange symbols and diagrams. "It's mostly observations about Earth's history. They've been watching us for a long time, longer than we realized. These files detail our wars, environmental destruction, nuclear experiments, all the ways we've harmed ourselves and our planet." Emily frowned, scanning the pages. "But none of that explains why they used such strong language. Calling us 'don't even think about it' sounds personal, like they're scared of us." Benjamin nodded grimly. "That's because there's more. According to these records, it's not just our violent tendencies that worry them. It's our adaptability, our ability to innovate and create, to build weapons capable of wiping out entire planets or technologies that could destabilize entire star systems. To them, we're unpredictable, uncontrollable." Emily sat back, absorbing the implications. "So they think we're dangerous?" "Exactly," Benjamin said. "And here's the kicker. They don't just see us as a threat to ourselves. They see us as a potential threat to the galaxy." The revelation hit Emily like a punch to the gut. Humanity had always dreamed of reaching the stars, imagining themselves as explorers and ambassadors of peace. But instead, they had been branded as a hazard, a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. As Emily left Benjamin's cabin later that evening, her mind raced with possibilities. She knew she couldn't keep this information to herself, but publishing, it came with risks. Revealing the truth could spark panic, riots, or even war between nations, yet hiding it felt wrong. Humanity deserved to know why they had been marked as untouchable, and whether there was any chance of changing their fate. Back in New Mexico, Rachel Myers and Alex Carter were dealing with their own struggles. Both felt responsible for attracting the attention of the Galactic Archive, and guilt weighed heavily on them. They spent long hours in the observatory, analyzing the alien transmission and brainstorming ways to communicate with the ship still hovering above Earth. One night, as they pored over data, Rachel voiced what they had both been thinking. "Do you think we made a mistake?" she asked quietly. Alex looked up from his computer screen, his expression troubled. "Sending the signal? Maybe. Or maybe it was inevitable. We were bound to attract attention sooner or later. But why did they react this way?" Rachel pressed. "If they've been watching us for centuries, why classify us now? Why not earlier or never at all?" Alex shrugged, rubbing his temples. "Maybe because we finally reached out. Maybe they saw it as a challenge, or maybe—" He trailed off, unsure how to finish the thought. Rachel finished it for him. "Or maybe they decided it was time to warn others about us." The idea hung in the air, heavy and unsettling. If the Galactic Archive truly viewed Earth as a threat, then humanity's future looked bleak. Isolation could mean stagnation, cutting them off from opportunities to learn and grow. But worse still was the possibility that the aliens might take drastic action if Earth failed to comply with their classification. Determined to fight back against despair, Rachel and Alex joined forces with Emily. Together, the three of them formed a plan to advocate for change. They traveled the world, speaking at conferences, universities, and rallies. Their message was simple. Humanity needed to prove itself worthy of reconsideration. By working together to address climate change, inequality, and militarization, they could show the Galactic Archive and themselves that Earth was capable of growth. Their efforts inspired grassroots movements, with people organizing protests, petitions, and community projects aimed at making positive changes. But resistance remained strong. Powerful corporations and political factions fought against reform, fearing loss of profit or control. Whispers of sabotage began to surface, fueled by mysterious blackouts in major cities and unexplained disruptions to global communications. Despite the challenges, Rachel, Alex, and Emily refused to give up. They knew the road ahead would be difficult, but they also knew that humanity's survival depended on unity and hope. As they stood together, gazing up at the alien ship still floating silently above Earth, they vowed to keep fighting. Whatever the Galactic Archive thought of them, they would prove that humanity was more than its flaws. They were survivors, dreamers, and creators. And they weren't ready to give up on their place among the stars. As weeks turned into months, the alien ship remained in Earth's orbit, a constant reminder of humanity's uncertain fate. The mysterious classification, "Don't even think about it," loomed over every conversation, decision, and action. Governments debated how to respond, scientists studied the alien technology, and ordinary people tried to adjust to life under the shadow of an extraterrestrial judgment. But for Rachel Myers, Alex Carter, and Emily Dawson, the stakes were higher than ever. Emily had published her findings about the Galactic Archive's observations, revealing fragments of the intercepted data that Dr. Benjamin Hayes had shared with her. Her article went viral, sparking outrage and debate worldwide. Some people argued that the classification was unfair, pointing to humanity's capacity for kindness, creativity, and progress. Others believed it was deserved, citing centuries of war, environmental destruction, and inequality. Protests erupted in cities around the globe, with signs reading everything from "We deserve a second chance" to "Leave us alone." Rachel and Alex threw themselves into advocacy work alongside Emily, traveling to speak at conferences and rallies. They urged world leaders to take the classification seriously and address the issues highlighted by the Galactic Archive. Their message resonated with many, inspiring grassroots movements aimed at creating positive change. Volunteers cleaned polluted rivers, planted trees, and organized food drives for struggling communities. Scientists collaborated on renewable energy projects, while activists pushed for policies to reduce inequality and prevent further environmental damage. But not everyone welcomed these efforts. Powerful corporations and political factions resisted reform, fearing losses in profit or influence. Conspiracy theories spread online, accusing Rachel, Alex, and Emily of exaggerating the threat or even fabricating the entire situation. Some extremists claimed the Galactic Archive was a hoax designed to control humanity, while others insisted that Earth should reject all forms of contact with extraterrestrials. Amidst the growing tension, strange events began occurring across the planet. Major cities experienced sudden blackouts, plunging streets into darkness and disrupting communications. At first, officials blamed technical failures or cyber attacks, but investigations revealed something far more unsettling. In each affected area, traces of advanced technology unlike anything humans had developed, were found embedded in power grids and communication networks. Someone, or something, was manipulating events from the shadows. Emily became obsessed with uncovering the truth behind the blackouts. She teamed up with Benjamin Hayes again, hoping his expertise might help them identify the source of the interference. Together, they analyzed patterns in the disruptions, searching for clues that could lead them to whoever was responsible. What they discovered shocked them. The sabotage originated from a hidden base buried deep beneath Antarctica. The revelation sent chills down Emily's spine. Who would go to such lengths to destabilize Earth? And why? Determined to find answers, she convinced Rachel and Alex to join her on an expedition to Antarctica. The journey was treacherous, with freezing temperatures and unpredictable weather, making travel difficult. But the trio pressed on, driven by the belief that understanding the saboteurs' motives might be key to changing humanity's fate. When they arrived at the coordinates identified in their research, they found a massive structure concealed beneath layers of ice. The entrance was guarded by armed soldiers wearing uniforms marked with unfamiliar insignias. Clearly, this wasn't a government facility, at least not one operating openly. Using stealth and ingenuity, Rachel, Alex, and Emily managed to slip past the guards and infiltrate the base. Inside, they discovered a labyrinth of high-tech equipment and laboratories filled with alien artifacts. It was clear that someone had been reverse engineering technology stolen during the initial contact with the Galactic Archive. But who? Their questions were answered when they stumbled upon a man standing in the center of the largest lab. He introduced himself as Dr. Marcus Lane, a rogue scientist who had once worked closely with Benjamin Hayes. Lane's face was gaunt, his eyes wild with conviction as he explained his actions. "You don't understand," he said, pacing back and forth. "Isolation is the only way to save humanity. If we allow ourselves to be influenced by extraterrestrial entities, we'll lose our identity. Or worse, become pawns in their games. We're better off alone." Rachel stepped forward, her voice steady, despite the fear coursing through her veins. "But isn't that what the Galactic Archive already decided? By labeling us as dangerous, they've isolated us anyway. Your actions are only making things worse." Lane shook his head vehemently. "No, you're missing the point. The classification isn't permanent, it's a test, a challenge. If we can prove ourselves worthy, they'll reconsider. But if we let outsiders meddle in our affairs, we'll never have the chance." Alex chimed in, his tone skeptical. "And how do you plan to prove ourselves worthy? By destroying everything they're watching? By sabotaging our own progress?" Lane smirked, gesturing toward a large machine humming ominously in the corner of the room. "By erasing Earth from their records entirely. If the Galactic Archive forgets we exist, we'll be free to chart our own course without interference." Emily's heart sank as she realized what Lane intended to do. The machine was designed to send a powerful signal capable of wiping out all traces of human civilization from the Galactic Archive's database. To Lane, it was a solution, a way to ensure Earth's survival. But to Emily, it felt like surrender. "Can't you Can't just erase us, she said, her voice trembling with anger. That's not freedom, that's giving up. Lane ignored her, turning back to the machine. It's too late for arguments. The signal will fire in 5 minutes. There's nothing you can do to stop me. Desperate, Rachel and Alex sprang into action. While Emily distracted Lane, they worked together to disable the machine. The process was complicated, requiring precise calculations and quick thinking. Time seemed to slow as they raced against the clock, their fingers flying over controls and wires. With only seconds to spare, Rachel managed to shut down the device. A deafening silence filled the room as the hum of the machine faded away. Lane screamed in frustration, lunging toward them. But before he could reach them, the ground beneath the base began to tremble violently. The stolen alien technology, destabilized by their interference, triggered a chain reaction that caused the entire structure to collapse. Rachel, Alex, and Emily barely escaped with their lives, fleeing the crumbling base just as it imploded behind them. Lane perished in the explosion, leaving behind only chaos and unanswered questions. As they stood outside, shivering in the cold, they knew they had uncovered a dark chapter in humanity's story, but also a glimmer of hope. News of the conspiracy spread quickly, thanks to Emily's reporting. People were outraged to learn that rogue actors had been working against humanity's best interests, using fear and misinformation to justify their destructive plans. The revelation galvanized support for global cooperation, uniting nations and communities in ways no one had thought possible. In the final days before the Galactic Archive's deadline, humanity rallied together like never before. Massive clean energy projects were launched, treaties were signed, and resources were redistributed to combat poverty and inequality. Though far from perfect, the effort marked a turning point in human history. For the first time, people looked beyond their differences and worked toward a common goal, proving to the universe and to themselves that they were capable of growth. When the year ended, Kale reappeared. This time, the holographic figure delivered its verdict after reviewing Earth's progress. Your classification has been downgraded, it announced. Earth status updated. Proceed with caution. The announcement brought mixed reactions. Some celebrated the downgrade as a victory, proof that humanity could rise to the occasion. Others saw it as a sobering reminder of how much work still needed to be done. But for Rachel, Alex, and Emily, it was enough. They had faced the stars united, not as conquerors or victims, but as survivors ready to write their own destiny. As they watched Kale's hologram fade into nothingness, they allowed themselves a moment of quiet reflection. The road ahead would be long and uncertain, but they had taken the first step, and sometimes that was all it took to change the course of history. The Galactic Archive's announcement that Earth's classification had been downgraded to proceed with caution brought a mix of relief and unease. While it was a step up from the ominous, "Don't even think about it," the new label still carried a sense of uncertainty. Humanity had proven itself capable of change, but the words "proceed with caution" suggested that trust was fragile and could easily be broken again. Rachel Myers, Alex Carter, and Emily Dawson watched Kale's hologram disappear into thin air, feeling a strange blend of emotions. They had worked tirelessly over the past year, risking their lives to uncover conspiracies and advocate for reform. Now they stood on the brink of a new chapter, a chapter where humanity might finally have a chance to interact with the wider universe. But none of them were naive enough to believe the hard part was over. As news of the updated classification spread, reactions varied wildly. Some people celebrated seeing the downgrade as proof that humanity was on the right path. Others remained skeptical, questioning whether the Galactic Archive's decision truly mattered, or if it was just another form of control. Conspiracy theories continued to thrive online, with some claiming the entire event was staged by secret organizations manipulating global events for their own gain. Despite the mixed opinions, one thing was clear: the world was paying attention. Governments around the globe scrambled to respond. Leaders held press conferences promising to build on the progress made during the past year. Plans were announced for international summits focused on sustainability, equality, and cooperation. The United Nations even proposed forming a special task force dedicated to studying extraterrestrial communication and preparing humanity for potential future contact. For the first time in history, nations seemed genuinely united by a shared goal. But beneath the surface of optimism, tension simmered. Powerful corporations and political factions that had resisted reform before were now doubling down on their efforts to undermine progress. Blackouts and disruptions to global communications persisted, though less frequently than before. Investigations pointed to shadowy groups determined to keep humanity isolated, or worse, provoke the Galactic Archive into taking drastic action against Earth. Rachel, Alex, and Emily knew better than anyone that the fight wasn't over. The rogue scientist Marcus Lane may have been stopped, but his ideology lived on. There were others out there who believed isolation was humanity's only path to survival. These individuals saw the Galactic Archive's presence as a threat to human sovereignty, arguing that any form of interaction with extraterrestrials would lead to exploitation or destruction. Their rhetoric resonated with certain segments of society, fueling fear and division. Determined to counteract this growing resistance, Rachel, Alex, and Emily redoubled their efforts to promote unity and understanding. They traveled the world, speaking at schools, community centers, and conferences, and their message was simple. Humanity's strength lay in its diversity and ability to adapt. By working together, people could overcome challenges and create a brighter future, not just for themselves but for generations to come. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of interviews and meetings, the trio gathered in a small cafe in London. Rain pattered against the windows as they sat huddled around a table, sipping hot tea and discussing their next steps. "We've done so much already," Emily said, her voice tinged with exhaustion. "But it feels like we're fighting an uphill battle every single day." Alex nodded, leaning back in his chair. "It's not going to be easy. Change never is. But look how far we've come. A year ago, no one even knew what the Galactic Archive was. Now people are talking about it everywhere, debating what it means and how we should respond." Rachel smiled faintly, stirring her tea absent-mindedly. "And that's something, isn't it? People are paying attention. That's half the battle." "Maybe," Emily replied, her tone thoughtful. "But attention isn't enough. We need action. Real, lasting change. Otherwise, all this effort will fade away as soon as the next crisis comes along." Alex sighed, rubbing his temples. "You're right. But we can't do everything ourselves. We've planted the seeds, now it's up to everyone else to water them." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden flash of light outside the window. Startled, they turned to see a drone hovering near the glass, its camera lens trained directly on them. Before they could react, the drone zipped away, disappearing into the rainy night. "What was that?" Rachel asked, her heart racing. "I don't know," Emily said, pulling out her phone to check for any unusual activity online. She quickly discovered that someone had hacked into her email account and leaked private messages between her and Benjamin Hayes. The messages contained sensitive details about the Antarctic base and their encounter with Marcus Lane. Within hours, the leak went viral. Social media erupted with accusations and conspiracy theories. Some praised Rachel, Alex, and Emily for exposing the truth, while others accused them of being puppets controlled by shadowy forces. Critics claimed they were exaggerating the threat posed by the Galactic Archive to manipulate public opinion and seize power. The backlash hit hard. Death threats poured in, forcing the trio to go into hiding temporarily. Governments distanced themselves from their advocacy work, fearing association with controversy. Even allies within grassroots movements began to waver, unsure whether supporting them was worth the risk. Despite the mounting pressure, Rachel, Alex, and Emily refused to give up. They knew the stakes were too high to walk away now. If they abandoned their mission, the progress they had fought so hard to achieve would crumble. More importantly, humanity's chance to prove itself, to show the Galactic Archive and the rest of the universe that it was capable of growth, would slip through their fingers. To counteract the smear campaign, they decided to release a detailed report outlining everything they had uncovered about the Galactic Archive, the rogue faction led by Marcus Lane, and the sabotage attempts. The report included evidence gathered during their expedition to Antarctica, as well as testimonials from experts and eyewitnesses. They hoped transparency would restore trust and rally support for their cause. The response was overwhelming. Millions of people downloaded the report, sharing it across platforms and sparking renewed discussions about humanity's place in the cosmos. Grassroots movements gained momentum, organizing protests, petitions, and community projects aimed at addressing the issues highlighted by the Galactic Archive. Scientists collaborated on innovative solutions to environmental and social challenges, while artists created work celebrating humanity's resilience and creativity. Even skeptics began to reconsider their stance. Slowly but surely, the tide turned in favor of unity and progress. Governments passed landmark legislation aimed at reducing inequality and combating climate change. Corporations pledged to adopt sustainable practices, driven by both public pressure and the desire to avoid further scrutiny from the Galactic Archive. For the first time in years, hope outweighed fear. But just as things started to stabilize, a new development threw everything into chaos. Reports emerged of strange objects appearing in Earth's orbit. Dozens of them, each resembling the sleek, shimmering design of the original alien ship. Unlike the first vessel, these ships didn't hover silently. Instead, they moved erratically, occasionally firing bursts of energy toward the planet below. No one knew what they wanted, or why they had arrived. Panic gripped the world once again. Military forces scrambled to prepare for potential invasion, while civilians braced for the worst. Rachel, Alex, and Emily watched the unfolding crisis with growing dread. Had their efforts been in vain? Was the Galactic Archive sending reinforcements to enforce its judgment, or worse, to intervene directly? Desperate for answers, they reached out to Benjamin Hayes, hoping he might have insights into the mysterious ships. He agreed to meet them at a remote location outside Geneva, Switzerland, where they could discuss the situation without fear of surveillance. When they arrived, Benjamin greeted them with a grim expression. "I've been analyzing the data," he said, gesturing to a laptop filled with complex equations and diagrams. "These ships aren't part of the Galactic Archive." "What do you mean?" Rachel asked, her voice tight with worry. "They're different," Benjamin explained. "Their technology doesn't match anything we've seen before. And their behavior, it's erratic, almost experimental, like they're testing us." "Testing us for what?" Alex pressed. Benjamin hesitated, his eyes dark with concern. "I don't know, but whatever it is, it's not good." The realization sent a chill through the group. If the ships weren't sent by the Galactic Archive, then who, or what, was behind them? And what did they want with Earth? As they left Benjamin's hideout, Rachel, Alex, and Emily couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was standing on the edge of a precipice. The past year had been a test of endurance, courage, and unity. Now they faced a new challenge, one that threatened to undo everything they had worked so hard to achieve. But despite the fear and uncertainty, they refused to give up. They had come too far to turn back now. Whatever the ships represented, they would face it together, as survivors ready to write their own destiny. The strange ships in Earth's orbit continued their unpredictable movements, firing bursts of energy that caused widespread panic. No one knew what they wanted, or why they had arrived. The Galactic Archive's earlier classification of Earth, as proceed with caution, suddenly felt like a distant memory. Humanity was once again facing an unknown threat, and fear spread faster than anyone could contain it. Rachel Myers, Alex Carter, and Emily Dawson gathered at a secure facility near Geneva, Switzerland, to strategize their next steps. They were joined by Dr. Benjamin Hayes, who had been analyzing data from the mysterious ships. His findings painted a troubling picture. These vessels weren't part of the Galactic Archive. Their technology was different, more advanced, more aggressive, and their erratic behavior suggested they were testing Earth in some way. "What do you think they're after?" Rachel asked, her voice tense as she stared at the holographic projections of the ships hovering over the planet. Benjamin adjusted his glasses, his expression grim. "I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you this. They're not here for diplomacy." Whatever their goal is, it's dangerous. Emily leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly together. Could they be connected to Marcus Lane? Or maybe another rogue faction? It's possible, Alex said, pacing the room. Lane wasn't working alone. There are others out there who believe isolation is humanity's only path to survival. Maybe these ships are their backup plan. Rachel shook her head. But if they wanted to isolate us, wouldn't they just destroy our ability to communicate or travel into space? This feels bigger than that. The group fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts. The presence of the ships loomed over them like a storm cloud, heavy and suffocating. They knew time was running out. If they didn't figure out the ship's purpose soon, humanity might face consequences far worse than anything they had imagined. Determined to uncover the truth, Rachel, Alex, and Emily decided to take matters into their own hands. Using the resources available at the secure facility, they worked tirelessly to decode the energy bursts emitted by the ships. Each burst carried patterns, complex sequences of numbers and symbols that seemed almost familiar. "This looks like a language," Emily said one night, her eyes glued to a monitor displaying the decoded data. "It's not random noise. Someone or something is trying to communicate." "If it's communication, then why are they attacking us at the same time?" Alex asked, frustration evident in his tone. "Maybe it's not an attack," Rachel suggested. "What if the energy bursts are probes, tools designed to test our defenses and capabilities?" Benjamin nodded slowly. "That makes sense. If they're assessing us, they'll need to push boundaries to see how we respond." The realization gave them a glimmer of hope. If the ships were testing humanity, then perhaps there was still a chance to prove themselves worthy of survival. But how? And to whom? As they delved deeper into the data, they discovered fragments of information embedded within the energy bursts. These fragments hinted at a message, a warning. It spoke of a galactic conflict, a war between civilizations fighting for control of resources and territory. Earth, it seemed, had been caught in the crossfire. "They're not here because of us," Emily whispered, her voice shaking. "They're here because of someone else." Rachel frowned, piecing together the implications. "You mean we're collateral damage?" "Or bait," Alex added darkly. "If Earth has been classified as dangerous by the Galactic Archive, maybe these ships see us as expendable." The thought sent a chill through the room. Humanity had spent so much time worrying about proving itself to the Galactic Archive that they hadn't considered the possibility of other threats lurking beyond the stars. Now they faced an enemy they couldn't reason with, an enemy that viewed Earth as nothing more than a pawn in a larger game. Despite the bleak outlook, Rachel, Alex, and Emily refused to give up. They knew they had to act quickly if they wanted to protect humanity from whatever fate awaited them. Drawing on everything they had learned over the past year, they devised a bold plan. Their first step was to broadcast a message directly to the ships. Using the same system they had used to send the original signal to the Galactic Archive, they transmitted a plea for understanding. The message included images of Earth's progress, its efforts to address climate change, reduce inequality, and promote peace, as well as a promise to cooperate peacefully with any extraterrestrial entities. While waiting for a response, they reached out to world leaders, urging them to prepare for the worst while maintaining unity. Governments reluctantly agreed, setting aside their differences to focus on defense and diplomacy. Military forces were placed on high alert, but strict orders were given to avoid provoking the ships unless absolutely necessary. Days passed without incident. The ships continued their erratic movements, occasionally firing energy bursts that caused localized blackouts and disruptions. But there was no clear sign of hostility or acknowledgement of the message sent by Rachel, Alex, and Emily. Then, one night something changed. A massive beam of light shot down from one of the ships, striking a remote desert in Australia. Witnesses reported seeing a glowing object descend from the sky before vanishing beneath the sand. News outlets scrambled to cover the event, speculating about alien invasions or hidden bases. Rachel, Alex, and Emily immediately set out for the site, determined to investigate. When they arrived, they found a crater filled with strange crystalline structures pulsing with energy. The air around the structures crackled with static electricity, making it difficult to approach. "What is this?" Alex murmured, staring at the crystals in awe. "It's some kind of beacon," Benjamin said, joining them after analyzing readings from his equipment. "They're using it to establish contact, but not with us." "With who, then?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Before anyone could answer, the ground began to tremble. The crystals emitted a blinding flash of light, forcing the group to shield their eyes. When the light faded, a figure stood in the center of the crater, a humanoid shape encased in shimmering armor that reflected the moonlight. "I am Zin," the figure said, its voice resonating in their minds, rather than their ears. "I represent the Coalition, a collective of civilizations united against tyranny." Rachel stepped forward cautiously. "Why are you here? What do you want with Earth?" Zin's gaze swept over them, unreadable behind its reflective visor. "Your planet stands at a crossroads. The Galactic Archive deemed you unworthy of interaction, yet your recent actions suggest potential for growth. We are here to determine whether you are allies or obstacles." Emily exchanged a glance with Rachel and Alex before speaking. "We've worked hard to change, to become better. Isn't that worth something?" Zin tilted its head slightly, as if considering her words. "Change is fragile. Trust must be earned. Prove yourselves, and we will reconsider." With that, the figure disappeared, leaving behind only silence and the pulsing crystals. The group stood frozen, unsure whether they had just been given a chance or a death sentence. Back at the secure facility, they discussed their options. The Coalition's arrival complicated everything. While the Galactic Archive had judged humanity harshly, it had also provided a framework for improvement. The Coalition, however, offered no such clarity. Their motives were unclear, their methods unpredictable. "We need to show them we're serious," Rachel said firmly. "That we're willing to fight, not just for ourselves, but for the future." Alex nodded. "And we need to do it fast, before they decide we're not worth the risk." Emily clenched her fists, determination burning in her chest. "Then let's get to work. We've come too far to back down now." Together, they rallied scientists, engineers, and activists from around the world, pooling their knowledge and resources to create a demonstration of humanity's potential. They built prototypes of sustainable technologies, showcased artistic expressions of unity and hope, and documented stories of resilience and cooperation. When the day came to present their case, Rachel, Alex, and Emily stood side by side, ready to face whatever judgment awaited them. Above them, the ships hovered silently, their sleek forms casting long shadows across the landscape. Zin reappeared, stepping out of thin air as if summoned by thought alone. Its visor gleamed in the sunlight as it surveyed the displays laid out before it. "You have shown initiative," Zin said finally. "But initiative alone is insufficient. Will you stand with us or against us?" Rachel took a deep breath, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "We choose to stand with you. Not because we're perfect, but because we believe in the possibility of change." For a long moment, Zin said nothing. Then, ever so slightly, it inclined its head. "Your choice is noted. The Coalition will observe further. Fail to uphold your promise, and you will face consequences." And Zin vanished. The ships began to retreat, disappearing one by one until the sky was clear. The world held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Rachel, Alex, and Emily watched the last ship fade from view, their hearts heavy with both relief and uncertainty. They had been given a second chance, but it came with conditions. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, sacrifices, and tests of character. Yet they knew one thing for certain: humanity's destiny was no longer written in stone. It was theirs to shape. And so, they returned to their work, resolved to build a future worthy not just of Earth. The departure of the Coalition's ships left Earth in a state of uneasy calm. For days, people around the world waited anxiously, wondering what would happen next. Would the Coalition return with reinforcements? Had humanity truly been given a second chance, or was this just a temporary reprieve? Rachel Myers, Alex Carter, and Emily Dawson knew better than anyone that the hard work was far from over. Zinn's words echoed in their minds. Fail to uphold your promise and you will face consequences. The message was clear. Humanity's future depended on its ability to prove itself worthy of trust. But how could they ensure that progress continued when so many forces still sought to divide and destabilize the planet? Determined to keep momentum going, Rachel, Alex, and Emily launched an ambitious campaign to promote unity and cooperation. They traveled across continents, meeting with leaders, activists, and ordinary citizens to share their vision for a better world. Their message was simple yet powerful. Humanity's strength lay not in its individual nations or factions, but in its collective potential. Their efforts inspired millions. Grassroots movements sprang up in cities and villages, organizing cleanup drives, educational programs, and community-building initiatives. Scientists collaborated on groundbreaking projects aimed at solving global challenges like climate change, food insecurity, and disease. Artists created works celebrating diversity and resilience, reminding people of their shared humanity. Even corporations began adopting sustainable practices, driven by both public pressure and the realization that survival depended on long-term thinking. But not everyone welcomed these changes. Powerful groups resistant to reform grew bolder, using fear and misinformation to undermine progress. Conspiracy theories about the coalition spread like wildfire, fueled by rogue media outlets and shadowy organizations determined to maintain control. Some claimed the alien ships were preparing to invade, while others insisted they were part of a secret government plot to manipulate the population. Protests turned violent in several cities, as extremists clashed with those advocating for peace and cooperation. Amidst the chaos, Rachel, Alex, and Emily found themselves targeted once again. Death threats poured in, forcing them to rely on security details provided by sympathetic governments. Yet even under constant surveillance, they refused to back down. They knew the stakes were too high to walk away now. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of speeches and meetings, the trio gathered in a quiet hotel room to strategize their next steps. Outside, rain drummed against the windows, casting rippling reflections on the walls. "We can't keep doing this alone," Emily said, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "We need more allies, people who understand what's at stake." Alex nodded, leaning back in his chair. "But how do we reach them? Everyone's so divided right now." Rachel stared at the map spread out on the table before her, dotted with markers indicating areas of conflict and resistance. "Maybe it's time we focus on the places where change is already happening. Show people what's possible when we work together." Emily brightened slightly. "You mean highlight success stories?" "Exactly," Rachel replied. "If people see real examples of progress, they might be inspired to join us instead of tearing each other apart." Over the next few weeks, they embarked on a whirlwind tour of communities leading the charge toward a brighter future. In Kenya, they visited a village powered entirely by renewable energy, thanks to a local initiative supported by international partnerships. In Brazil, they met farmers using cutting-edge technology to restore degraded land and combat deforestation. In Japan, they witnessed students designing robots capable of cleaning oceans and rivers polluted by centuries of neglect. Each story was filmed and shared online, reaching millions of viewers worldwide. The response was overwhelming. People began donating resources, volunteering their time, and spreading awareness about the importance of sustainability and cooperation. Slowly but surely, hope began to outweigh fear. Meanwhile, Dr. Benjamin Hayes worked tirelessly behind the scenes, analyzing data collected during the coalition's visit. He discovered something startling. The crystalline structures left behind in the Australian desert were still active, emitting faint signals into space. It seemed the coalition hadn't completely abandoned Earth. They were monitoring the situation remotely. "They're watching us," Benjamin told Rachel, Alex, and Emily during a video call. "Every step we take, every decision we make, it's being recorded and evaluated." "That makes sense," Rachel said thoughtfully. "They gave us a chance, but they're not going to leave anything to chance," Alex frowned. "So what happens if we mess up? Do they come back and wipe us out?" Benjamin hesitated before answering. I don't know, but I think the key is consistency. If we can show them that we're committed to lasting change, not just quick fixes, we might have a shot. With renewed determination, the group redoubled their efforts. They reached out to world leaders, urging them to prioritize collaboration over competition. Governments reluctantly agreed, setting aside old rivalries to focus on shared goals. Treaties were signed, trade agreements revised, and resources redistributed to combat inequality and environmental destruction. Even skeptics began to soften their stance. As evidence of progress mounted, critics who had dismissed Rachel, Alex, and Emily as idealists started to see the value in their vision. Slowly, humanity began to unite. Not perfectly, but with purpose. Then one night, the sky lit up once more. The coalition's ships returned, descending silently above major cities around the globe. This time, however, they didn't fire energy bursts or cause disruptions. Instead, holographic figures materialized in public squares, parks, and stadiums. I am Zin. The familiar voice resonated in everyone's minds. The coalition has observed your actions. While flaws remain, your efforts demonstrate potential. A collective gasp swept through the crowds as people listened intently. Your classification has been updated, Zin continued. Earth status, under consideration. Further evaluation will occur within the next decade. Fail to sustain progress and your fate will be sealed. With that, the holograms vanished, and the ships ascended into the atmosphere, disappearing beyond the horizon. The announcement sent shockwaves through society. Some celebrated the news as proof that humanity was on the right path. Others saw it as a challenge, a test they couldn't afford to fail. Debates raged online and offline, but one thing was certain. The journey ahead would demand everything Earth had to offer. Rachel, Alex, and Emily stood together in New York City's Times Square, watching the hologram fade into nothingness. Around them, strangers hugged, cried, and cheered, united by a fragile yet undeniable sense of hope. We did it, Emily whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. For now, Rachel added softly. But this isn't the end. It's just the beginning. Alex nodded, gazing up at the stars. And whatever happens next, we'll face it together. As they walked away from the square, the weight of responsibility settled heavily on their shoulders. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Resistance would persist, conflicts would arise, and sacrifices would need to be made. But they also knew that humanity's greatest strength lay in its ability to adapt, innovate, and persevere. For the first time in history, Earth stood united, not as conquerors or victims, but as survivors ready to write their own destiny. The stars above no longer felt distant or unreachable. They were a reminder of what humanity could achieve if it dared to dream and dared to change. And so, Rachel, Alex, and Emily pressed forward, determined to build a future worthy not just of Earth, but of the vast, uncharted universe waiting beyond.